Now, we are the People's Channel, and Matt, you did noble battle with the BBC the other day on their lunchtime politics programme, much to their disgust. But you have been out with people polling on behalf of the People's Channel to find out what people really think about the scenes that we've had on the streets of London, Birmingham, Manchester, Edinburgh and elsewhere. We're always told by our political class that it doesn't matter about numbers. Immigration doesn't matter about numbers. We are a model of total success for integration of migrant communities into society. Anyone that dares answer back against that in public is vilified. I should know. What have you discovered about attitudes towards integration of all the different communities in the UK?
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting if you look at what the commentators in London are saying, particularly after Suella Braverman's recent comments that multiculturalism might not be working. We have this narrative in London particularly, which is this is an unalloyed success story. But actually, when we ask voters across the country, do you think that migrants are integrating well into Britain, only 30% nationally, only 30% of people feel that immigrants are integrating well into the rest of the country. So as we've been sat at home over the last 2 weeks, I think looking at these scenes, looking at people glorifying terrorism on the streets of Britain, looking at people celebrating the murder and the rape of Jews in Israel, I think actually, Nigel, this is a watershed moment, actually, in our debate about immigration and integration, because it is simply no longer plausible, after the events of the last 2 weeks, to argue that immigration and multiculturalism are only ever positive, because clearly that is not the case, and many voters out there feel the same way.
No, that's right, and I bet we're the only broadcast channel in the UK that would even dare to ask that question, let alone broadcast the answer. But what really interested me was when we went on, and we've heard the German Chancellor, we've heard this week the French Interior Minister, saying that if you're here glorifying terrorism, we don't give a damn about the European Court of Human Rights, we're just going to start deporting people. And yet, as soon as that issue gets raised in this country, they all throw their hands up in absolute horror. What is the real attitude of British folk towards those that glorify terrorism? What would they like to see done?
So I've been polling a long time, and there are policies where sometimes you are quite surprised by the numbers, where there's almost consensus on an issue, and this is one of them. If you ask voters, as I've done across Britain, what do you think we should do to foreign nationals who are glorifying Islamist terrorism on the streets of Britain? 3/4 of the country say those people should be deported out of Britain. Well, but again,
I mean, and this is not reflected at all, is it, in the debate we see in the House of Commons, the House of Lords, or in most of our national media?
I think that's true. I spend a lot of my time, as you know, and some of the people here know, presenting the case as to what people really think. And the reason we ask these questions is because so few other pollsters do. People out there want to have a conversation about what's happening to Britain. They want to have a conversation about these issues around migration, border security, integration, the future of our communities. And I think many people now feel as though they can't really talk about those issues. It's being swept under the carpet. And if you do challenge the consensus on those issues, as we've seen with, say, Suella Braverman and other politicians, you're attacked and you're criticised and you're berated, even though you are often representing the views and the values of a majority of people in this country. And I think a lot of people out there, to be blunt, Nigel, are sick of it. I think they want a different national conversation.
No, I think you're right. These people certainly do. And 3/4 of people in favour of deporting those who act in this way. How many strongly in favour of them staying?
About 4%.
4%.
4% would oppose it.
So the rest are undecided, folks. But almost the 4% who think, yeah, just say what you like on Britain's streets and stay, that number's almost as powerful as the 3/4 figure.
So if you look at all of these issues that are dismissed as culture wars, immigration, sex, gender, our history, what you often find is that it's a small activist minority of no more than about 15% of Britain maximum, who are basically dictating the agenda, who are basically changing the guidance in schools, changing the guidance in the NHS, saying we should have weaker borders, saying we should allow refugees in from Gaza. But if you ask real people out there in the country, and one of the reasons we do the polling is we want to know what the real people out there are thinking and feeling, they often really do not agree with this agenda. They feel that it's being imposed on them from the top down, and they feel that they can't really express their view about what they want to happen to their home, their country, and this is our home. So they feel very strongly about it. And I hope that the views of ordinary people will find their way into our national debate in a much bigger way going forward.